Upamanyu Chatterjee, of course, is the author of many novels, the first of which, English August, an Indian Story, catapulted him into our lives, along with the film adaptation, which of course he will be talking about at another session. But this session is particularly dedicated to his newest book, Lorenzo Searches for the Meaning of Life, which very recently won the JCB Prize for Literature. The book is a study of the extraordinary experiences of an ordinary man and of both the majesty and the banality of the spiritual path. It marks a new phase in the literary journey of one of India's finest and most consistently original writers. Please give a round of applause to welcome Upamanyu Chatterjee to the Coal India Kolkata Literary Meet. In conversation with him is Jashodhara Chakraborti. Jashodhara is an alumna of Lady Shri Ram College and IIM Calcutta. She's a well-known writer, translator, and also teaches a course on storytelling. I now hand over to Jashodhara.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Kolkata Literary Meet. Welcome, Upamanyu. Is the mic on?
Welcome. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it on? Oh.
Yeah, I think they can hear you loud and clear. So, just a few hygiene questions. We will be signing. He'll be signing his books after the session. This session is principally on Lorenzo, but we might just drift into English August in your bit where you ask your questions, because there's a separate session on English August specifically tomorrow. Upamanyu, we usually hear of writers finding their story or sort of thinking up their stories, but in this case the story found you. And I wanted to ask you, for the benefit of all of us gathered here, how it happened. How did the story begin?
We were then staying in Colombo. We spent 6 very fruitful years, 2018 to 2024. And if you really want all the details, okay. So one day I was in the lift in the condominium, and a white man got in with a woman who was clearly subcontinental, and they began speaking to each other in Bengali. So I said, oh, that's odd enough. White man speaking Bengali. And a Bengali that I haven't heard since my days in Chittaranjan Park, Delhi, which is the Bengali of East Bengal. So I said, this is getting a little weird. Anyway, to cut a long story short, then my wife told me, oh, we have this Italian in our office who's married a Bangladeshi woman. 6 months later, she said, you know, he's weird. He was once a monk. 6 months later, she said, oh, you know, he is very intrigued by the fact that you write books that no one reads. But what he's really looking for is someone to write the story of his life. I mean, he didn't say it quite so straightforwardly, but that he was, what he really wanted to do, because he has, as I mentioned more than once in the book itself, he thinks fiction to be a waste of time. So he doesn't read fiction, but at the same time he thought that it would be nice if my sort of journey was put down on paper by someone else, because I can't do it. So I was then finishing villainy. I said, okay, let me put this together. Then he said, okay, fine, but we are under orders of transfer. We are going to Phnom Penh. etc., etc., etc. So I said, okay, then before he left, for the last 6 weeks of his stay there, we used to meet every day. He'd just talk. I'd take notes, fountain pen. And once he left, long live WhatsApp, 6 questions a day, very meticulous. What is the color of the wall when you go down the corridor of your monastery, etc., etc. So that's it. He read the draft twice. Finally said, it's nice. So there you are.
So I was wondering actually, because when you read the book, as it's split into 2 halves. One half is in Pralya in Italy, and the other half is Khulna, about as different as it can be. And they're both incredibly detailed. It's reading your book is a visual experience. And I wondered how you filled in the detail to that extent, because I use Google all the time, but it's rubbish. So how did you do it?
Well, after you use Google, you should bounce it off someone who knows the terrain. Even Khulna, I've never been to Bangladesh. My parents were from there, but I've never been. I did also speak to Pushpo, his wife, but his descriptions of Khulna were very detailed too. And as I said, we have changed names and sort of sequence and so on, because it might have got too detailed and too boring, more boring than it is. But at the end of it, he sort of cleared it. Of course, there were places where he said, look, I need to. Can we just tone this down? Can we delete this? I said, yeah, sure.
Actually, I didn't find it boring at all. Just for the benefit of the audience, it's a very reflective book. It is, of course, very, very different from English August, which is what we cut our teeth on. And I think there's a generation of us sitting here for about 10 years plus minus your age who, we derived our lingo from your book. So I remember my late 90s and early 2000s being very, very dominated by your style of writing. And it was a whole bunch of people. Today on my Facebook, a batchmate wrote, Madna forever, when you heard I was going to interview you. So this is different, obviously. It's quieter. The humor is gentler, but it is there. And it's a meandering journey, and it was frankly a balm for frayed nerves, because I'm just coming off back-to-back with these books which are rather fraught with sexual violence, and this was very, very, very nice to read. But it is also, in a sense, the title is a red herring. Lorenzo's search for the meaning of life. It's
meant to be funny in the sense it's just such a cliche. It's the title, meaning of life is just such a cliche. And then I thought, well, actually that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing, because he just sort of, I did think of anti-clockwise, put that in somewhere, because he does what people do, but, in an anti-clockwise manner, in the sense that he begins with a spiritual search. He doesn't quite abandon it, but he thinks or finally realizes that, you see, he hasn't, for example, read Dostoevsky. Not the end of the world. But there's this line from Karamazov about Father Zosima saying that a monk is what every human being ought to be. And he said, that's very good, that's very true, and who the hell is Dostoevsky, etc. So I said, that's a pointer. I said, okay, let's just push the book in that direction. Let's just make sure that that's, at the end of it, that's what, that's vaguely what we should get, that he retains that monastic discipline within himself, even when he is growing olives in Italy. So he himself is very sure. He himself is very sure that the best of the monastic life is still with him. So, okay, that's fine.
Interestingly, I noticed that, you know, this, the way the story ends without necessarily giving it away. And you'll probably anyway read it for the rhythm of the book, which is so beautiful. It meanders it like a river. It was just such a beautiful book to read. It's not, the unfolding of it comes as a surprise. But even without giving that away, I just felt, in the end, it's not like he renounced faith. It's just that he added on to his faith. He added on more life, in a way.
Well, yes, thank you for saying so. I mean, thank you. I mean, much better that you say it than me. But it's true that it sort of adds the life. He's a physiotherapist in Khulna, in the middle of nowhere in Khulna. So he actually, all that is true, by the way. There was a severely crippled girl called Shundari. I mean, he himself in the book says, "Oh, you mean Shundari?" And the sister says, "No, not Shundari, Beauty. Her name is Beauty," the English word. So, and she was severely crippled, and he actually takes, I've sort of put it in a capsule of, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 years, but actually it takes very, very long to get her to walk. I mean, she was bedridden. She's, you know, she was in terrible shape. And the real Beauty in Khulna finally marries. So then it was just getting out of hand. I said, "Oh my God, he should attend the wedding," and so on. So I said, you know, that's just, you know, once he's out of Khulna and in that developmental, you know, European world, where all you're doing is writing reports, etc. Once he's there, for us the life is over. He's just back to normal. It's true as you say. You know, it adds to the depth of his experience. Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you get asked a lot about humor in your writing, and I will come to that. But I wanted to specifically also ask you about painting with words almost, because this book feels literally as painterly as the cover is. It's a joy to read. Even the way Lorenzo paints the chapel, you know, he's got a diploma in fine arts, and he uses tempera to paint a church door. I forget the technical term, but the description of it was just so sensual. What would you tell readers and writers among ourselves?
I was just being faithful to his descriptions, and what didn't sound accurate or precise enough, I'd just badger him for. I said, let's get on with it. He does spend several months, or maybe it's a couple of years, over each painting, both tempera and the monastery repairs rare books destroyed in the floods of Venice in God knows which year. So all that, I thought, he wanted to sort of skip that and get on with, you know, prayers to God knows which saint. I said, no, can we just, you know, we've had enough of those Christian saints. As it is, you know, he read about 200 more than the number I've put into the book. I said, oh, we can't possibly have more saints. Can we just spend more pages on how you restore books? And how you paint. He was quite happy with that because it showed a side of him that he wanted emphasized. Yeah.
Upamanyu, humor in writing. In your case, of course, this book is very different, but it's definitely not without its humor. And I'm speaking for myself here. When I ask you, how do you calibrate it? At what point do you feel that, you know, if I don't hold back on the humor a little, it'll be the writer imposing himself on the character and on the story? Because how much of this book really, in many ways, the voice, occasionally I find, is Lorenzo funny at all? Or is that
Of
you?
of course not. He's a monk. They're very boring. No, I'm kidding. He's a very nice guy. He's a good friend. He's a nice guy. No, it's. I have great respect for comedy, for humor. For I find that you should include as many good jokes as you can. I mean, the great writers. I mean, Kafka is very, very funny. I mean, that opening of the trial and those, it's and the castle. It's just Dostoevsky is very funny. That the open, that the Crime and Punishment scene where he's actually killed that old woman, and then that key rattling in the door and that panic and. It's much larger, comedy than tragedy. Tragedy is just life is tough. But comedy is much larger. It subsumes. I have great respect. So, I just find that it also helps your reader to turn the page. So if you want to add as many jokes as you can without disturbing the flow of the story, why not? When I sent him all that completely uncalled for description of what's it? That time statue.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Which was funny, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't mind at all. He said, yeah, sure.
He didn't mind the slight irreverence.
Not at all. No. Anything to, and I told him, look, we should just because as it is, the subject matter is not so fascinating. It's not a murder in.
Interestingly, the Victoria Memorial has a few of these, you can tell they're sort of 60-year-old lords with six-packs and biceps kind of strutting their stuff as you go for your morning walk. So, if you find the time, you'd probably be reminded of your description.
It's that same principle, I mean, if you're going to show this sort of male, female in the nude, they'd better just have these terrific bodies.
Women are always terribly younger. Their faces are, of course, 16, and their bodies are perhaps 22.
But anyway, so that's so I have great respect for the comic. I include it whenever I can.
What are you working on next?
Well, as I said, the 6 years in Colombo were very productive. I did two collections of short stories and 2 books. The second collection of short stories, which actually 4 long stories, so should be out in March, inshallah. 4 very long stories, actually.
And you got a title for us?
It's top secret because the publisher. Anyway,
so who's the publisher? I'm just being nosy.
It's the same lot.
It's Speaking Tiger. I'm going to actually read out 3 lines, and because I have a question linked to these 3 lines, and it's right at the beginning of the book, and it's called "Welcome to Pralya," first chapter. And this is a little bit about Lorenzo, who's sort of packing up to leave for the monastery. And he says, he puts his stuff in an overnight bag, places the bag on the rear seat of his Renault 5, goes to the kennel in the corner of the garden to hug and nuzzle Vega the dog, a handsome golden brown beast, half German shepherd, a quarter retriever, and in her reflective moments, there is something about her eyes that recalls the young Sylvester Stallone. And I wanted to ask you, are you a dog person? Do you like dogs?
Yeah, sure. He just, Italian. I was looking for an Italian actor. Then I said, maybe I should try Leonardo DiCaprio. Then I said, no, this is 79 or 81 or 80 or something. So that's the advantage of Google. You just go through Google and see biggest Italian star in Hollywood in the late 70s, early 80s, and they came up with Sylvester Stallone.
Also, Sylvester Stallone's eyes kind of, they go with the description.
No, that's not, that's me being unkind because he's had he's half paralyzed or something. That's why, I mean, he was then. I mean, there's something wrong. So it's a very unkind remark, but comedy can be.
That reminds me, comedy is very often unkind. And nowadays, just a couple of days ago, I was talking to a children's author who writes funny books, who is rather worried about the fact that parents are coming in and saying, you cannot write this, or this is unfunny, or this is, you absolutely cannot say this to our children. And, what's your view on that? I mean, how do writers navigate humor today?
I don't know, it just should sound right, that's all. I certainly am not going to risk writing a children's book. But otherwise it's no holds barred. I mean, it should just sound funny. In fact, 3 days later, if I've forgotten the para, I should read it, and if I find it, not haha, but if I find it funny, I should, I retain it. So lots of stuff I have to delete. So, but, as I said, I have great respect for the funny line, yeah.
I'd be quite happy to sort of open up this session to the audience now, because, Lorenzo is a book you will discover by reading. There's a lot of detail to it. It's a joy to read, but I don't want to necessarily just give away every little detail, because it's really a book you should discover for yourself. And I know you're dying to ask questions. So can the mic be passed, please? Do raise your hands. We will find you. Right. Anyone? Yeah, I know. Do you need a mic? If you're trained in theatre, you could throw your voice, perhaps we'd hear you. I could throw the mic instead. Is that okay?
Hello. I wanted to ask you about the extraordinary lability of your language, because I don't know of any other Indian writer in English who's constantly reinvented his idioms so with such dexterity across his books. There was something...
You are too kind.
No, I've read I think I've read all of them actually. There's something Rabelisian about weight loss, was it? And the last burden. And there's, there are lines from English August which have just permanently lodged themselves in my brain, like getting hazar fucked in Madna, or what do you do with an English honors? You do something shallow and urban like journalism or advertising, and things like that. And there was that ekphrastic impulse in Lorenzo Searches for the Meaning of Life, which Jashodhara was alluding to. So is there a way, when you find a subject, to retrofit a certain, a specific language or an idiom? Because that's all. Because when we were in college, I went to the same college as you did, and there was a huge debate in the 125th year about, is there a St. Stephen's College of Writing? So our teacher, Arjun Mahe, who knew you, I think, very well, he said, I don't know about the existence of this St. Stephen's School, but if there's someone who tops it, it is Upamanyu Chatterjee. So.
Well, Mahe, did he really say that? He cut me dead. I waved. You see, my nephew was in St. Stephen's, and he said, listen, you just come and sort of talk to one of those groups. So I said, I just can't go, because it's legendary, the rudeness of St. Stephen's audiences. And you started me off. Kabir Bedi came to talk to us, and these two girls whom I know, they just to each other for about 10 minutes. And then they went up to him, and there he was waiting. Very sort of, sir, demigod kind. And then they gave him the scrap of paper for his autograph. And he went and he signed. And then they looked at it and said, oh, we thought you were Benjamin Gilani. So that's St. Stephen's. So I said, I can't go. And Mahi was there. So I just waved to him anyway, he cut me dead. But it's good to know, because Mahi himself, before he became a Buddhist, right? So, Buddhist, maybe you don't write fiction anymore, because he used to write very well. Anyway, that 125th year, it was going to be so full of Shashi Tharoor that what is this St. Stephen's School? So I said, they must be mad. It's actually but they actually did an issue on, and Aditya Bhattacharjee did write to me saying that, English August is it, and so on. And my teacher said, by the way, why are you saying Hajar Fakt? It's Hazar Fakt. So I said, no. In Delhi University, we used to say Hajar Fakt because it's sort of part of it to sort of mispronounce and so on. So thank you for those kind words. I just work on every line. That's why it takes so long.
I think it's quite difficult to top that question, but are there any more? So may I ask you a standard LitFest question? I understand you write by hand?
Yeah, there's something called a pen hospital here. I was going to bring my fountain pens. But, COVID, there was no one to go to in COVID. Colombo doesn't have any fountain pen repairers.
So I'm a fountain pen user, but I write by hand as well because it's just increasingly more and more rare.
I can't, as it is, my mind sort of blanks out anyway, but I can't work on a screen. It doesn't work. So, with fountain pen, you can also work in transit lounges and things when your damn plane is an hour and a half late and so on. All you need is a scrap of paper. And so I do write by fountain pen. And then at the end of it, you type. That's your second draft, and it seems to work.
Right. Any more questions for Upamanyu?
There's only one.
Yeah, just the one?
I ask myself.
Oh. Well, we have, I think, we're fairly close to our closing time. So, it is, right? It is. So, in which case, Upamanyu will be signing his copies at the Story Store. Thank you for being here. You've been a lovely, responsive audience. I just noticed that not enough questions, perhaps not very many students among you. Have a lovely evening. The next session is coming up. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.